is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Bloodborne, the board game. A game that I was extremely anticipating and just was super ecstatic whenever it first went on Kickstarter, because this is my favorite video game of all time, currently. And I think I mentioned it during the unboxing. Technically, Legend of Zelda is really my subjective favorite games, but in terms of, theme, lore, challenge, euphoria that you get whenever you finally beat a boss, it goes to Bloodborne. This game just does everything right for me. And so I was hesitant whenever it was coming to the actual board game because of the Dark Souls board game and the Horizon Zero Dawn board game. But those two are by one other company, Steamforged, and then there is this one, which was done by Simon. So I was like, So I didn't know how to feel, except that I was like, I can't wait. If it's done right, it's going to be awesome. And if it's done poorly, I'm going to be super pissed. But hey, at least I'll have badass miniatures, right? And so I finally got it all. I haven't been excited for a game in a long time. I was giddy. I was like, ooh, I can't wait to play this. And nope, it lives up. I love it. I think it is so much fun. It's not one of those, well, 3/4 of the game is fun, but whenever it comes to the boss, or 3/4 of the game sucks ass, but when it comes to the boss fights, it's good, like the Dark Souls board game was, and nothing was fun for the Horizon Zero Dawn board game. This one just does everything right. When I first got my 2 boxes and I opened it up and I was sitting there and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't get extra dice, I'm gonna need those. And as I'm unboxing the base game, I'm like, wait a minute, there's no dice. There's no dice. It just, there's still the randomness of your deck, but like every other good card game, or deck, this has some slight deck building in it, you have some prediction, because what it does is, and so this is one of the big things, is the fact that you will always have a 12-card deck, and every hunter starts out the same way, at least with their 12 cards. Now their weapons are different, and the fact that you have the different types of the 4 different cards coming out. And the way you can utilize those cards with your abilities and come up with really interesting combos on how you're going to defeat the monsters is really innovative. And then you turn that into, every time you go to the Hunter's Dream, you basically spend your blood echoes to quickly get cards. And then you do some slight deck building. You're sitting there, what kind of build do I want to do? Do I want to go into heavy card draw and manipulation? Do I want to go in dodge build? Do I want to go in heavy attack? Do I want to go in heavy speed and protection? There's quite a bit that you can do, but it becomes increasingly harder when you're like, okay, how do I want to do this? What kind of build do I want to go? And this is kind of their way of doing stats, because in the Dark Souls board game you actually had attributes that you had to manipulate. You would spend souls to upgrade that, and here you don't have that. What they did that differentiates this game from the Dark Souls game is all the minutia of the Dark Souls game, where Steamforged went, I guess they really tried to create, hey, here's Dark Souls, the board game, or the video game, as a board game. And that just doesn't work. It became extremely fiddly. Sharing souls between players was annoying. Having to utilize your souls to buy items as well as also upgrade your stats was just extremely cumbersome. And here you don't have any of that. Your build, whether you're going strength build, dex build, blood tinge build, or skill, is based off the 12-card deck. And I love that. What they did is, instead of being like, hey, we're going to try and make the video game as a board game, they said, we're just going to give you the atmosphere and feel of the video game, but still translate it well into a board game. And I believe they have absolutely done that. Every everything about this is streamlined, so it's not as complex. And there's a few things where it's like, well, that doesn't quite make sense, but as a board game it does, and that's okay, because unlike taking, and I'm going to be comparing the two, unlike taking the Dark Souls game where it's just like, wow, yeah, this is exactly like the video game, this is awful, because I've always said that theme doesn't always make good game mechanics. There's a balance to it. And so whenever you're going off of your character build, you're sitting here and you're like, man, how are they going to do trick weapons? Because I get having it just a weapon that does something, because that's what the video game does. Okay, like if you have a longsword in Dark Souls and the longsword does this, well, the card just says that, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, I have that. But the thing with the trick weapons is that they have two sides. And you actually, what they did is, this is one of the things that it's like, well, that doesn't quite make sense, but in the feeling and in the atmosphere, it does. Because obviously combat, you don't want it to be this big, long ordeal. It wants to be quick and streamlined, which I love. So what you do is you have a hand of cards, and if you're attacking, then you take up a slot. Like, so when combat happens, it happens no matter who's doing it. If you're being attacked by them, you get to attack back. If you're attacking them, they attack back. It happens, and then you just compare the speed. And if it's the same, then you attack each other. So what they've done is, let's say you have the Ludwig Holy Blade, and you want to do a quick strike, which is a fast attack, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. Okay, fair. You have a hand that basically when you have to hand manage and slot into your area, saying, okay, well, if this goes off, I'm going to get to draw a card and deal 1 damage. If they don't go first, if they don't stagger me, or if they don't do something that affects what I do. What's really cool is, essentially, whenever you're playing your card down onto this, it's saying thematically, you're committing to this attack, which is similar to the video game. When you hit the R1 button to swing your sword, you are in that motion, so you can't dodge out of it, you can't cancel it. So if they're attacking you while you're attacking, or if you're attacking an enemy and you get attacked from behind, you've already committed to that, so you're going to get hit. They're going to do something, you're going to be affected. So for example, if I'm doing this quick stab attack as one, and I didn't do anything to stagger them, I didn't do anything, I'm just doing it to get an extra card, well, if they have a slow attack, like, their slow attack will go off unless you happen to kill them first. And I get it. It doesn't quite make sense that as you fill up your different attacks with cards, that it's like, why can't I use my weapon? Well, most likely, and this is one of the weird things, it's like, well, you've filled up your slots, therefore you can't attack. I guess that they went for more of a that's where it's more board gamey than trying to capture the video game, because obviously if you can keep attacking, you can keep attacking. That's fine unless you run out of stamina. This is essentially what I'm guessing is, if the cards are filled up, if you've attacked and you've used all the 3 different types of attack, that's you running out of stamina. Because there's no stamina in here. There is stamina in Bloodborne, and there's stamina in Dark Souls and all that. In Dark Souls, you had the track. You had your health and you had your stamina and ways to manage that. That was fine. But here, it's more of like they wanted you to utilize your trick weapon. And so whenever this is filled up, you have to discard the card from your hand, which is limited to what you can do. And so you discard the card, and then all the cards clear out, and then you swap to the other side. And I think that they've done that pretty well. I think that executing the trick weapons, the different combinations, the different special abilities of... I was going to pull out a different weapon. The different special abilities of the cards, of the attacks, of the combinations of the cards. It is so much fun. It gives you stuff to think about than just sitting there and be like, okay, well, my sword does 2 yellow and 1 red attack. All right, I still missed. All right, that's cool. Like, you potentially will never miss. You can always hit if you're faster than them, if you play your cards right, if they don't stagger you, or if something else doesn't cause you to be affected in any way. So I think they did a really good job here. Is it perfect? No, but is it perfect for a board game adaptation of a video game? Yes. And that's pretty much everything. That's the crux of what you should take away from this whole discussion, is that they took Bloodborne and they made it a board game. They didn't turn the game into what a video game board game should be, because it doesn't work. As far as I'm concerned, it will never work for multiple reasons. Kingdom Rush, for example, is a tower defense app translated to a board game. Play the app. Dark Souls is a terrible board game adaptation. Play the video game. Through the Ages, technically not a Civilization skin, but good enough. Through the Ages doesn't count. You can play that one. Civilization, the board game. Play the video game. Here, you can play this. This gives you everything that you're wanting from Bloodborne as a board game. I fully believe that. So that's the combat. The combat is so, man, it's so much fun. You get to sit here and you can see everything that they're going to do. You don't know what attack they're going to do, which I like. That has a kind of, the closest thing I can think of is kind of an Aeon's End, where you don't know if you're going to go or if the Nemesis is going to go, but you can see everything that the Nemesis is going to do. You can see everything that the enemy's going to do. Oh, I'm in here with a Huntsman minion. Okay, if he goes slow, that's going to hurt, but I have my fast attack, and I have this card that lets me do this. Oh, and if he's going to attack, now I have a chance to dodge, but that's going to take up some of my stamina, hence why this has to be their stamina meter. So that means I can't attack as much because I'm out of stamina. And you're swapping between two attacks, and you have multiple ways to clear it. So it's you regaining your stamina. But the fact you can sit here and be like, oh, if he does a special, which is his brick swipe, that'll stagger me and do some damage. Okay, well, he's done a special and two basic cards, and there's 3 left. That means one of these is an ability, one of them is a basic, and one is a special. So you can... you don't know, of course, how it's going to come out, but you can sit here and be like, man, okay, it could be his basic, so I can do my slash attack and potentially kill him. But if it's not his basic attack, and I've used my gun, if it's not his basic attack, then I will die, because I have 2 health right now, and, oh, thank God, it's his basic. Alright, bam, I'm able to kill him. Or, oh, it's his ability. Well, that's still slow, but it's still going to go off. I love it. They've captured the essence of the enemies extremely well. They didn't bog you down with having to go and rest at the bonfire. The Hunter's Dream is boom. You can go from anywhere. So the lanterns are really just kind of a spawn point for you. You don't have to go to a lantern and go to the Hunter's Dream. You can do it from anywhere. It takes a card. Everything refreshes. You heal up. All of that you would do, because the Hunter's Dream is essentially the safe haven. And if you have any blood echoes, boom, you have to spend them. So you can only ever have a max of 3 blood echoes, but I like that. You don't have a pile of souls or anything. You just, hey, you have 3 blood echoes if you've killed 3 enemies. And so you're so then you can spend those, but you have to buy cards, but you technically don't have to put them in your deck. So you can just kind of cycle through and be like, okay, how do I want to put this in? Do I want to take any of these basics out? Do I want to just level up? Well, the dodging isn't working as well as I thought it would, so I'll take some of those out. It's just so streamlined. I absolutely love it. So that brings me into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the kind of the exploring as well as the pacing of the game. So instead of what they did with Bloodborne is they actually made it a campaign. I don't think the Dark Souls game was a campaign. I think you just set out tiles and then you ran through, leveled up, and then fought a boss. And this way is so much better. You go through the video game. If you of course have all the expansions and stuff, which I'm assuming that this might go to retail. If it does, grab all the expansions, but if it doesn't, then if you're watching this, you're probably a Kickstarter backer or looking for the Kickstarter stuff. So grab it all, because you go through the missions of the story. You go, as I did my unboxing, I went through, hey, here's the main campaign. So you essentially, it's campaign based. So you pick a deck of, and it gives you chapters. And so it's like, okay, well, they're not played in any particular order, but you can probably play them in the order that you think. So it starts with the Long Hunt. That seems to be almost like, it's kind of the beginning when you are in Yharnam, before you get to probably Odin Chapel, or as it takes you to, my speculation is each campaign will end with a boss fight. So the Long Hunt probably will end with the Cleric Beast. And what's interesting about this campaign, either Eric Lang and what is his name, Michael Sheenall, either reached out to Miyazaki or Sony or some way, and they captured the story, because most Miyazaki games or From Software games, you have no idea what the fuck is going on. You have to read into a whole bunch of stuff. You have to read a bunch of item descriptions and then gather, or just watch videos and gather the story that way. But here, throughout the campaign, they're probably actually going to give you the story of Bloodborne. So I think that in that regard, the board game is better than the video game, because you get the insight, you get the feeling of the world. And that deck feels like Fantasy Flight's Fallout or their Arkham Horror, the 3rd edition, where as you do certain missions throughout the chapter, you get flavor text, which is fine. I always like that. I think that doesn't quite lead to replayability, but there's a couple things with that. I'll talk about replayability in a sec. But you get to go through the deck of the campaign and feel the story, which is fine. That part is thematic, because when you're playing Bloodborne and you beat it, well, you beat it. So it's not like you're getting a whole new experience playing it again. So it comes, the replayability does come in with the different trick weapons, because as you go through, this is the only trick weapon that I can use. As far as I know, I believe each chapter you have to play the same build, and you change based off the deck. So I like that. I like that it's like, boom, here's your chapter 1 mission, here's where you're going through, and each chapter probably takes about an hour and a half, which is a pretty solid, that feels like a pretty, because when I was doing the first chapter, I was engaged the entire time. The way that the board comes out, it's very manageable. You're not just running, like whenever I was like, oh, okay, I need to get to, Odin Chapel. Well, I haven't found it yet. Well, there's only 2 locations left. And you can quickly move, you can just spend a bunch of cards and move, but then if you run in and an enemy activates, you're going to have no cards to deal with it. So it's fast-paced, it feels fast-paced, combat feels fluid and streamlined. There's that word again, streamlined. That they really put a lot of heart and soul into the game. Because the challenges of the hunt are there, and there was never a point, because you can go through Bloodborne and even Dark Souls for that matter without dying a lot. I mean, it's really going to come into the boss fights where you're probably going to die more than regular enemies. So when I was playing this one, there were multiple times where I'm like, okay, if I get hit, I will die. If I run in here and there's an enemy, I will die, because they'll activate and I will have no cards to defend myself. So you have that option, you have that way, instead of just being like, well, it doesn't matter, it depends on what the dice do. There's just none of that, and I'm so happy for it. So while the game isn't it's not punishing, but it's challenging, because you have open information. You can manage your hand, you can manage your weapon, you get consumables that help, you get runes, you get rewards that all can help you. In fact, there was a time where one of the challenges brought in an enemy, and I was like, oh, I have to do 8 damage total to this thing before it goes, or before it kills me. And it just so happened I had the right combination of cards and items where it's like, okay, boom, I'm going to be able to dodge, I'm going to be able to attack him. Because of my weapon, I deal damage if I clear a slot. Well, a lot of my dodge cards clear slots. So, okay, so boom, I do that. I have this rune that I can use to bring that card back, dodge again. You just get this rhythm and this awesome combo that if any of those pieces were not there, I would have died to the enemy. But because I happen to have that, it's like, great, this is the combo I'm going to go with. And you have that freedom to play around like that. So the chapters are extremely fun. You actually get lore. You get some decisions, which are cool. I didn't expect them to throw in any decisions throughout the game. And then you make some decisions in the video game. It's not there's not a lot, but you can. It's little side quests, so I like that they incorporated that. When it comes to replayability, like I said, if you play the chapter, you're going to know the beats of kind of what the chapter is. But you have that replayability when it comes to the tile layout. The enemies have two sides to them, so and that's not dependent on the number of players. So you'll have a different way that the enemies can attack you. The way the tiles come out. And ultimately, it's going to come down to the build that you're going for. Like I said, if you're playing Bloodborne, the video game, you basically are getting... if you play it once and you play it again, you're going to go through the same thing. But it's like, oh, this time I want to try it with the threaded cane. This time I want to try it with the rifle spear. And, of course, with all the expansions, you have every weapon known to man. I want to try it with the scythe and see how the gameplay, the card play that comes in that, and how difficult or challenging it could be. If you want an extra challenge, you can add mini bosses, which, hey, you draw a card. Oh, this time this mini boss is in here, and it's a hunter. Basically, every mini boss is a hunter. And so you're like, okay, now that's a problem because they do stuff, and hunters are always a pain to actually fight while you're also fighting a horde of enemies. So I think that they did a great job by not making this game extremely punishing, but challenging. So the other thing that I absolutely love, I mentioned the lanterns, how you don't have to run to them to be able to go to the hunter's dream. You have to they're basically, like I said, spawn points, so ways for you to teleport instead of burning a bunch of cards. What's fantastic about this and differentiates it from the bonfires is the problem with the Dark Souls game was the fact that, yes, you rest at the bonfire, boom, every single spot respawns. So enemies come back. I get that. That makes sense. That's what it is. But as a board game, it was extremely fiddly because okay, let me get these minis out, yada, yada, yada. Okay, now we have to fight these again before going to the spot. I get it. But in a video game, that's all quick. It takes 3 swings to kill an enemy. It takes 15 minutes to kill an enemy in the Dark Souls game. But what they did here is they gave you a track. You have a specific amount of time to finish the chapter. And so each time it's your turn, that track moves up. Each time you go to the hunter's dream, voluntarily or involuntarily, the track moves up. And there are 4 total respawn or reset locations, and I love that. So it gives you, okay, because your turn's going to go really quick. The enemy's turns are going to go really quick, so that tracker's going to keep moving, and that's how you lose, is if you run out of time. So you're sitting here, and you can kill enemies. If you don't want to go to the hunter's dream, you can run around, but each time, eventually, those monsters will respawn. If you're sitting there, and because the first respawn or reset track is on the 4th location, so by your 4th turn, enemies will come back. But if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I killed a few monsters, I can go to the hunter's dream. Oh, but if I do, then it'll reset. Oh, and then I'll have to come back and fight them again, and they'll be in the way. But the fact that it's not every time you go to the hunter's dream, so you do get chances to level up without having to deal with the fiddliness of putting enemies back. I think that's great. I really like that track is there because it's like, unlike, oh, you can only visit the the bonfire area 4 times before you just lose. I never liked that. I never liked that idea of a timer. But here it's like, well, I can visit the hunter's dream every time I kill an enemy. I can just keep doing that and keep healing. But that's less time I'm going to have to complete the missions that I don't know what they do, as well as, okay, enemies are coming back, so you have that freedom. So you're probably going to be going back every time that you're having at least 2 or 3 blood echoes, but you might die if you risk it and then you lose them. So you have that kind of inner confliction, which I enjoy. So then comes the boss fights. So the boss fights are, I think, done incredibly well. Because of the way that combat works, how it's extremely streamlined and quick. Yeah, you're not maneuvering around the battlefield. You're not avoiding like in the Dark Souls boss fights. You had like an arena that you were actually moving around, and you can dodge and move that way. And depending on where you were, with the enemy deck, it would hit you or miss you. The fighting was done really well for the boss fights in the Dark Souls board game. However, here it's basically, hey, here's a spot. Here's where the enemy is. Like, boom, there's one enemy. You're not maneuvering around. All of it is more thematically tied with your card play. You don't physically move your mini from spot to spot. And the way that the boss fights work are very similar to how enemies work, except they don't have the enemy action deck. They have their deck, and they have 2 phases. Each enemy, I believe, has 5 phase 1 and 5 phase 2. So those decks are shuffled, and they have health. So if it's the Cleric Beast, for example, his phase 1, he has 10 health. You deal him 10 health, then he'll flip to phase 2, and then he has 8 health. If you're playing a solo game, which I still think this game is very much solo or 2. It would probably be okay with more. Obviously, the enemy, the enemies are still there, but you're not hoarding blood echoes as much, because you only get a blood echo if you're the one that kills it. So if you're playing with multiple people and I kill this minion and someone kills the Scourge Beast, then you get those echoes yourself. But so for example, if we're playing with 4 players, then phase 1 of the Cleric Beast has 24 health, and then he has 20 health, and so he has a total of 44 health in a 4-player game versus the 18 in a solo player game. But I think it still works extremely well, because all of the cards that all the cards that they do, like all of their attacks, are thematically tied to what they do in the video game. So for example, but you also don't know. Like here, you can look at the Hunter Mob and be like, okay, their basic attack is a 2 speed and 2 damage, alright. Well, okay, so here's my turn, I'm going to attack and then flip it. Okay, it is a overhead slam, that's 2 speed, 4 damage. Targets all hunters in the space. Before this attack, one hunter in the space may exhaust their firearm to place 1 insight token on the Cleric Beast card. This attack deals -1 damage per insight token. So you then have to be like, okay, well that's what I was attacking with. I need to dodge now. So you don't know how they're going to react exactly. But the fact that this isn't just a deck. I mean, the Dark Souls one, they had a deck and they'd go through, and if it's still in phase 1 or if they didn't become heated, then the deck would flip over and you'd be like, oh, okay, I remember the first card, so I know how to maneuver. Both systems, I think, are perfectly fine. They both capture the atmosphere of the boss fights of both those games. So I can't really knock one or the other. It's going to be dependent on kind of what you want to do. I think I do prefer the Dark Souls boss fights. I did like that tactical maneuverability, but because of the way that they went with the trick weapons, went with the card play, to streamline it so you didn't have to just run around and because this game is extremely simple to learn, and so you just have to be in that area and you just kind of card battle it out with the boss. I think it thematically brings it in if you have any semblance of an imagination, so you can it does it extremely well. You're just not physically doing anything. But yeah, so then these come out, and then okay, well, if you haven't done in a solo game 10 damage, then this shuffles, and then once you do 10 damage, he flips to his phase 2, and then, oh, by the way, you're gonna attack. Alright, now he does this attack, which is Recovery. Remove all insight tokens on its card. Block 2 damage from Hunter's attack, and then he shuffles his action deck. So it's like, shit, he healed! Like, that sucks. So I think it's quick, it's fun, boom, you get into the action, and that's what Bloodborne is. It's quick pace. Like, you're not hiding behind a shield, defending yourself. You are dodging and shooting, like quickly attacking, backing up, and that's what the sole difference of Bloodborne to Dark Souls was, hey, you can power through and attack with a shield. You don't have a shield here. In fact, in the video game, there's one shield, and it's the wooden shield, and it does jack shit. And I think that was Miyazaki being like, hey, by the way, yeah, shields don't exist here. So, it's fantastic. The boss fights are exhilarating, thematic, and fun, while also being, say it with me, streamlined. So, that, I think, is pretty much everything. Yeah, like I mentioned, the replayability is going to be based off of trick weapons and how you wanna build. And of course the different campaigns. If they're giving you some choices, you can make a little bit different choices here and there. So what do I have any negatives? I almost really don't, because everything is so quick. For example, the one thing that they didn't include was Quicksilver bullets. So you can't keep stunning them over and over, but you still can. And I get it. They didn't want to bog you down with a bunch of tokens and have you collect. Like, you can collect as many consumable cards as you want, and I guarantee you there's probably a quick... Oh, it's literally at the bottom. So, refresh firearm. So you can have... How many are there? There's probably 2. So you can get Quicksilver bullets as a weapon. Oh yeah, it was literally bottom and top. That's funny. So there's 2. So you can get 2... Did I say as a weapon? You can get Quicksilver bullets as a consumable, and those are just free to do. So you can shoot and then spend one. So they do have it, but it's not something that you can just constantly do, which I guess makes sense. The fact that that is a consumable in the video game, and if you run out, then you can't shoot. So I love the fact that most of the weapons kind of do the same thing. They do have variants, like, for example, I don't know what I did with it. I think it was Ludwig's rifle. If an enemy enters your spot, deal 2 damage. So they have some variants with the firearms, but most of them do just stagger if they're making a basic attack, which I think is fine, because that's what it does in the video game. You're not sitting there. You're most likely not sitting there from a distance shooting, because they never do a whole lot of damage anyway. Statuses are fine. You can only ever have 1, and they're debilitating, because you might be thinking, well, like poison or frenzy, that doesn't do a whole lot. Well, the fact is, for example, one of the overhead slam does 4 damage. You have 6 health the entire... So that's that's basically... Oh, that's one attack that basically almost killed me. I have no way to heal. Of course, there's going to be blood vials in here. Let's see if I can find blood vial, heal 2. So you have consumables that you can get, but you're not going to get a lot of them. So you're almost always one hit, even one regular hit from a basic attack is like, oh, hey, deals 2 damage. Well, that's a third of my health. So you're constantly on that verge of like not wanting to get hit because you can die. And the other great thing is when you die, it's not like, oh, sorry, that's it. Like, that was one of your 4 bonfire resets. Nope, it is just, like, the track moves up. You lose all your blood echoes, so you're basically just kind of moving up. But you heal up, you get your deck reset, and you come back into any lantern. So, I love it. I am so relieved that they didn't just cash grab, hey, here's a lot of minis, and the game's shit. No, the game is not shit. You get the Bloodborne feel. So it begs the question, would I like this game if it didn't have the Bloodborne theme on it? Because like I said, Bloodborne's my favorite video game. I still think so. I really do. Obviously that's hard to say because there is no game like this but I think that with the streamlined nature, it still is a fun, it's slightly like a dungeon crawl with the card play. It's basically Gloomhaven Light, I guess, is kind of the best example. Is there's very little luck, open information. You kind of know how enemies are going to fight. You have missions to go on. You have different builds that you can do. Yeah, it's kind of like a very light Gloomhaven. And then you have awesome, exhilarating boss fights, as well as it's Bloodborne. So, like, of course, that just knocks it up a whole another 10 points for me. So, is there any negatives that I can think that people might? If you don't like Bloodborne, I'd still say give this game a shot and then go play the video game, but expect to die a lot more in the video game. I don't know. Unless people really like dice and they like that random chance. I think probably the biggest negative is people might come to this from the Dark Souls game and they might not like the boss fights. Which, that I can kind of see, because it might be a little disappointing to see the awesome mini not move around. But the minis didn't really move around a lot in the Dark Souls game. They just had sections, so they would rotate. So it's not like they were constantly hopping back and forth either. So I think in lieu of like the area attack, they just kind of streamlined it here. So maybe not. Maybe if you just don't like Bloodborne, then you might not like this game. But other than that, now actually there is one negative that I have. Is I have everything for this game, and they didn't include a few bosses. One of them I'm fine with, but I do wish that they included everything. One of them is Mikolash, and he might be in it for a campaign. They might say his name or something, but he's not an actual fight, which is fine because he would just do his entire Phase 1 and Phase 2 decks would be the same card. Was it Call to Beyond? So he would just one-hit you. You would draw it and be like, Call to Beyond, one-hit the player, they die immediately. That would be exactly, because that's all he fucking does. He sucks. He sucks. I hate him so much. I hate that part in the fucking game. But they don't technically have, well, they might with the cards or with the tiles. One of the campaign is Old Yarnum, but it's more of like you're trying to prevent it from being burned down, so it's not an actual. It's weird that they didn't do it as a mini box, because a lot of the expansions were mini boxes. But so they didn't include that, which was kind of odd. I'm trying to think. They have Durza as a player, so you can technically fight him. Maybe it's because there's no. Maybe there's no final boss. Maybe that's kind of what they went for. But the other one, so that's fine. Old Yardum, I mean, I like the location quite a bit, but they have a campaign for it, so maybe that'll be fine. So maybe, of course, Storage Solution is dog shit with CMON. They have so much stuff, but they did a pretty good job with the inserts, so I do like that. They actually have slots for you to save your deck and stuff, so and store tokens, which once again, they didn't do a whole lot of tokens, so that's not that big of a deal. So Storage Solution isn't horrible. In fact, if you keep them boxed up, then that's going to be, oh, hey, let's go to Bergenworth. Oh, let's go to the Forbidden, so it might actually not be too bad. Out of all their games, this is probably the best way that they've done storage. But they don't have Dark Beast Parl, and I like that fight. I think that would have been a worthy boss fight to have. You could have easily just had him in Yarnum, because technically you circle around and you end up back in Yarnum. I think they could have had Dark Beast Parl. I don't know why they didn't include him. And then I think that's it. I think that's all the bosses in the game. I think those are just the two that they didn't. Oh no, they allude to a lot of stuff in the Nightmare Realm, where you can fight Amygdala, and Amygdala would have been a cool fight. I think that would have been a pretty badass mini. They don't have Amygdala in here for any of the stuff, so yeah, they kind of omitted a few of the optional locations, because you don't have to do that either. I think you need a certain number of insight to even go and fight her. But in New Game, I think in New Game Plus 2, she broke me for a little bit. I was pretty tilted fighting her. So yeah, what I want from this game, I want them, and they could easily release it on retail. They don't even have to do a Kickstarter for it, unless they did a Kickstarter to include some of the stuff that they didn't do. I want the Old Hunters DLC. I want Ludwig, Lady Maria, Orphan of Cause, and who's the other one? Lawrence, and even the stupid ass failed experiments. I want all of that. I want those locations. I want the Old Hunters DLC. They did it for their card game, so they might do it. I need to figure out if any of you know are inside, like have an inside knowledge of CMON. I want to know if they're going to do that DLC, because those are easily the best bosses. Those are the best locations. The DLC for Bloodborne is fantastic, so I would love it. I would cry tears of joy if they included that, because it is great campaign stuff for this game. Great boss fights. You get more weapons. That's where Simon's bow blade is. That's where one of the amygdala arms is. That's where the Orphan of the Cause Parasite, which sucks. You get Lady Maria's blades, the ones that you basically can. It turns into like a double spear, and then you can break them apart. You get those, although if you get those by fighting the hardest minions in the game, the 2 sharks. Oh god, that's such a gross NPC fight. You get one of the hunters. If you get all of his gear, but also his I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a mace almost, where you like impale yourself and it turns into like it's a blood tinge build. So there's a lot of weapons in the DLC that they could easily just make the skin the trick weapons for them. I think there's more guns. There's a Gatling gun you can get. I want the Old Hunters DLC for this game. It would just need to be 1 box. That's it. Like the size of the base box. You could easily do that. So I know Eric Lang doesn't work solely for CMON, but I believe he can still be contracted by them. But as far as I know, Michael Chanel was kind of the lead. I remember getting a lot of his updates. So Michael and Eric, do the Old Hunters DLC. I will pay you. I will solely back it for however much it would cost. That'd be it, because then they'd have everything. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, what am I going to give Bloodborne the board game? If they did the Old Hunters DLC, it'd be a 10. Without a doubt. Just because my top 3 fights, my top 3 bosses, which, by the way, go check out my top 10 Bloodborne bosses. I did that. I got, no one gave a shit about, but it's there. But, yeah, my 3 favorite bosses are from that DLC. But it doesn't exist right now, and I don't know if it ever will. So, I think I'm going to give the Bloodborne board game, for me, because it's my favorite game, and they did everything exactly what it needed to be as a board game adaptation, I'm going to give it a 9. I really enjoy this. If it didn't have Bloodborne on it, I think it would be an 8. So it goes up a point because it is Bloodborne. And it stays at a 9 because it's not disappointing. They streamlined it, and they did a video game board game adaptation justice. They just did it right. So I'm excited to continue doing the series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And you get to see basically the story of Bloodborne with more lore than you would get from a Let's Play on a video game. But still, if you want to know more about Bloodborne, the video game, I would just go check out, there's a Reddit article. Some guy did a really lengthy article on the lore, and then there's videos out there for it. So yeah, that is my thoughts on Bloodborne, the board game. Stick around for the rest of the series. Let me know what you think of the Bloodborne board game in the comments below. Also, let me know if you know anything about the Old Hunters DLC for the game, because, man, that would be awesome. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.